ahead.
I can actually agree with that. I do have to admit, I am a thief. It's been years coming out of the foster care system trying to stop that, but when I was a kid, I stole for my food. All I got was my school lunch. During summertime, it was worse because I was malnourished. I remember being really skinny and having to go to grocery stores, stealing bread, stealing candy, stealing whatever I can get my hands on just to eat. And yeah, I have a lot of I have a criminal record as a child, not as an adult, but I can say there's been times over the past 2 years that I've been an adult where, yeah, I've gotten so hungry that, yes, I want to steal. I am that hungry that I need food, and I've gone dumpster diving. I've done stuff that is just, you wouldn't want to do it. I mean, come on, week old burgers and stuff from a garbage can. I mean, yeah, I've had raw meat. I've had bad milk. I've given my digestive system a good pounding. But I can say, being a homeless youth, once you get in that situation, yes, you have to resort to criminal stuff in order to get by. If you don't know what services are out there, if you can't get access to what is there to help you, then yeah, you do resort to criminal activity. And it's not exactly your fault, it's just a means to survive. And it's not something that we can really help unless we want to die.
I want to say too that we've also heard of people who choose to commit crimes so they can get inside overnight, so you're not left out on the street.
And it's not just unique to youth. I mean, we have adults that are doing that too. We see people doing that. And the challenge then is, of course, if they end up with a felony, then they're not eligible for a lot of the housing programs. So it's really a challenge to look at how do we develop housing support that meets people where they're at, whether they have a criminal history, you know, whether they've been homeless for years or days. How do we just meet them and meet their needs where they're at today?
Okay, we should probably move on. Taking about 20 minutes on that last question. So again, if you have something to address, and if we have time at the end, or if you want to write something down, we'll take the next question. And sometimes your questions can also come out with ensuing questions that are being asked here as well.
Pardon me, I'm the rude timekeeper that lingers over Steve's shoulder throughout the forum. So let's move to the next question. What programs exist that address the immediate needs in crisis situations? Now I'm going to give an example, and let's see who's getting this one. Mary Euland Evans. So just to give you some time to think. For example, the Bridge for Youth has a 24-hour, 7 days a week emergency respite center to allow a place to cool down so a family can better work through an issue before it escalates to a situation of homelessness. So Mary?
Well, thank you. I went through these questions a week or so ago, and I jotted down some things that I thought we needed to cover, and that's the one question I had no answer for.
Well, moving on.
And I would actually defer to Beverly, I think, in this room, and then in Mankato. I'm thinking regionally, there's a new program Lutheran Social Services has opened up in the Mankato area. They have a drop-in center and safe homes. And they're working, I think, with some of the local providers to maybe share best practices, do some partnering. But I think Bev from the Y-Link program is the only game in town.
Yeah, I think that's what we hear.
I think you're right. The 24/7 is a real struggle, and there's no denying that piece of it. All the grants that we have do require that the youth be working, and we have made connections and collaborations in that direction with workforce, and there's other agencies in town that we have been working with. The Salvation Army has a service for families, and so when we have a young mother with kids, we do the referral to them. There's Interfaith Hospitality, and they also address families, and we make referrals to Heather. And that's pretty much what we have.
And Bev, I'm sorry, I may have missed this. The 24/7 you said was difficult. So what hours would you say is that available?
Our cell phones are on the door, and that's pretty much, you know, our cell phones are on, so a call could be made to us anytime that way.
Okay. Anybody else on this one? Yes. Microphone coming this way.
Thank you. I'm with Community Services in the Adolescent Services area, and I think there are services that certainly can be obtained through the county, through our intake and crisis after-hours social workers that respond to a lot of situations where there's a crisis situation with adolescents and families and that. And I think this is another example of what Mike Podolsky talked about earlier in terms of the idea that homelessness is, it doesn't exist in isolation. It is a manifestation. It is an outgrowth of a lot of other types of concerns and issues and social connections and human connections and family relationships and all those kinds of things. And so it gets a little muddy in some ways in terms of how that all flows together, but certainly Child and Family Services and Adolescent Services, we deal with a lot of crisis situations involving teenagers and families that are necessarily related to homelessness directly, but certainly can be part of that process and might even include some of that where we get kids who are, you know, or they've run away or they've been kicked out of the house and there's a need to do something to resolve that. So there's some response that's available from the county in terms of 24/7 for a little bit of that as well. In fact, I think quite a bit of that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just want to back up a little bit to what Bev said, and I think we all believe that working is a good thing. We all have a good work ethic. We think it's a step towards self-sufficiency. That's a very popular word nowadays. Our expectation for kids who may have mental health problems, who have no place to sleep, who have no transportation, who don't have enough to eat, that they have a job, go to school. We all know they have to go to school. We expect them to do the same kind of work that every other kid in school does. And we expect them to take care of themselves at nighttime, whether it's in somebody else's apartment or if they've been lucky enough to find something that's subsidized. Henry talked a little bit on our way over here about that issue. Do you have anything else you want to say? Okay, all right. The challenges of a student going to RCTC who doesn't have a car, who needs to take the bus. If he has a job, getting home at 9 o'clock at night, he doesn't have a laptop at home. He doesn't have internet at home. So it's not like he can come home necessarily and do all of his homework independently. He needs to be at school to have access to the technology to get his schoolwork done. So I think oftentimes we put a very unrealistic expectation on kids who have so many of these other issues, as Alan talked about, going on in their lives too.